Excellent. Good evening, everybody, and you are very welcome along this evening. My name is Sarah Gilhooly, and I work alongside Dr. Tony Quinn, who is the originator of the Educo model. And I'm delighted to have along our guest this evening, who is Angie Bent, and she is going to be talking to us in the area of how she used the Educo model to get results from a health perspective. And the first thing I'm going to tell you about Angie is going to blow you away, is that Angie is actually going to be 60 years of age next week. I know people looking at you online this evening, Angie, are going to be blown away by that fact when they see you. But not only that, but Angie has spoken in a number of different areas and arenas in terms of her journey with health and how she got incredible, mind-blowing results using the Educo model to help on her health journey. And she has spoken at the Lymphoma Action Group, she has spoken at the Live Your Life Conference, and she has spoken at the Post-Cancer Health and Wellbeing event. And I was just looking at my notes there to get those absolutely perfect for you, Angie, to let people know exactly what areas you've been talking in. And I'm delighted to have you along this evening because, as some of you may know, a number of years ago, almost actually over 25 years ago now at this stage, Dr. Tony Quinn was a pioneer in the area of medicine by the fact that he actually trained 4 people to undergo operations without any anesthetics. And he did that using the power of the mind. And it was through that that he discovered unconscious attention, which was a pioneering and a breakthrough discovery in the area of the mind. And what he discovered was that he could train these people to use more of their mind to the point that they'd actually be able to undergo an operation without any anesthetic whatsoever. And what he discovered when he interviewed them afterwards was not only did they not feel any pain when they were undergoing the operations using that power of the mind, but they actually felt an incredible power come through them as a result. And I know Angie's going to talk very much in that area this evening, and she has an incredible story to tell you about her own health journey and in terms of how she's used her mind to get results. And I know, Angie, you've gotten results in many areas in your life, but you're super passionate about the area of health, and I know you're so excited to come on tonight and talk to everybody. So maybe you might give people a little bit of background about you, a little bit of information on your journey, and tell us a little bit about how you ended up where you ended up tonight.
Right, thank you, Sarah. Well, I've had a very varied career because I've always been fascinated by people. And so a lot of the jobs I've had, I've done a lot of traveling, traveled the world, met a lot of people, which has been awesome. However, I've always felt there is something more. I just didn't know what that more was. But to go to my story, basically what happened was when I was 16, which was back in the 70s, I was diagnosed with cancer. So as you can imagine, as a 16-year-old, you're thinking, hang on a minute, I'm just about to start living and the doctors are saying I'm ill. So that didn't go down too well with me. So I was determined to fight them. So the lump they found was in my neck because I was diagnosed with a cancer of the lymphatic system, which is the immune system, basically. So one of my lymph nodes had come up. They removed the lump, and then I had to have radiation treatment. So all that went okay, I guess. You know, usual symptoms and side effects, but I got through it. And then I was diagnosed with cancer again at the age of 25, in 1985 that was. And this time round, they gave me chemotherapy. I was extremely ill. My vital organs were failing because the chemo was so strong that it was knocking out my liver and my kidneys. So I had to stop the treatment for a while my body recovered before I could continue the treatment. So it wasn't very nice. And one of the things I had to have done before I started my treatment back then was a bone marrow examination. And basically with a bone marrow examination, what they do is stick a horse needle into your hip to go into the marrow and take a snip of bone at the same time. And when they did it, they had to scrape me off the ceiling. I was in so much pain. It was just horrendous. I've never felt pain before or since then like that. So It was really painful, but at the end of the day, all of that is now behind me. That was all back then. So it was just one of those things that happened, which I got through as best I could at the time, using the mindset I had at that time. So
excellent.
that
And
was
then in
that.
terms and then in terms of what happened next, so obviously you had experienced what it was like to go through a health situation before you had attended the seminar, and then obviously you're going to talk to us this evening about the difference that came about afterwards.
Absolutely. Well, as I said, I've always been interested in the mind, the power of the mind, why some people are really successful and others are failing. So I've always been on a search, and I've been on lots of seminars, but they never quite did it for me. And then I heard about Educo and Dr. Tony Quinn and the groundbreaking work he'd done. And one of my friends went on the seminar, and when this friend came back, they were walking towards me, and all I can say is that there was something about that person. They were so different. They just looked so alive and full of life and full of energy. And I just said, "What have you done?" And they said, "I've just come back from that Dr. Tony Quinn seminar." And I said, "Fine, that's it. I'm on the next one." There was no brochure, no website, no book, nothing. I just saw this person, knew whatever that person had discovered on that seminar, that's what I wanted. Something inside me just said, go, which I did. And it was the best thing I've ever done, because Dr. Quinn gives you precise steps using the Educo model. It is phenomenal. It just does everything for you. It's actually reconnecting you back to yourself. And that's what Dr. Quinn does. And that's what the Educo model does. It connects you back to your true self, your essence. And this is the life force we all have within us. And this is what gurus and yogis have been searching for millions, well, not millions, but thousands of years. And it's what makes the difference, because we're so used to just living and existing from our conscious mind, which is such a small percentage of our mind. Whereas when you can connect to your spirit, your innate being, that power is released, which can do so much more for you, because suddenly it's not just you trying to use a small percentage of your mind to make things happen. It's your whole being, it's your whole essence that's doing it for you. And so that's what made the complete difference to my life when I got back from the seminar. And I am just so grateful that I went, because of what's happened since then.
And I think it's incredible, because I think people are going to love what you're going to tell them next in terms of the difference that made when you came up against a health situation the next time. That actually, maybe you'll share a little bit of that with people as to what happened next and how you took what you learned on the seminar and the Educo model and applied that to getting the outcome and the result with your health.
Yep, absolutely. Well, back in 2014, I was diagnosed with cancer again, but this time round it was cancer of the lymphatic system, but the particular cancer I had at that time also affected other areas of the body. So it wasn't just the lymphatic system. I had lumps and bumps all over my body. So I had numerous tests, and of course one of them was another bone marrow examination. So you can imagine I'd already been through that back in the 80s. I knew how painful it was. However, this time round, as I was walking in, I just said, I'm going to be absolutely fine, because I'd seen those operations where Tony was working with people who had those serious operations without painkillers or anesthetic. So I absolutely knew it was possible. So when I got in there, I lay down on the gurney, was completely relaxed, because as far as I was concerned, I was going out that evening with some friends, and there was no way I was going to be ill. There was no way I was going to miss it. And I didn't want people to know what I was going through. So if I looked ill or felt in pain, they would have asked me what was wrong, and I would have had to have told them. So as far as I was concerned, that was not an option. So I'm lying on the gurney. I've got the doctor and the nurse trying to stick the horse needle into me. And the procedure's taking 3 times longer than normal because my bones are so strong. And at one point, the doctor turns around and goes, "How are you feeling?" And I said, "How do you think I'm feeling? I'm bored." And they went, "You're bored?" And I said, "Yes, I'm lying on my side on this gurney, staring at this lime green wall. If you'd told me how long this was going to take, I would have brought a book with me." So at which point everyone started laughing. But basically I got off the gurney, went home, showered, went out that evening for dinner, and I didn't even need an aspirin. I felt no pain whatsoever. So it was just incredible.
That honestly, that's truly spectacular, because you can give the experience before the Educo model and the experience after, and it's a completely different experience.
Completely different, because that was because I was using more of my mind and I had my life force involved in it as well. It wasn't just me. I wasn't just trying to use a small percentage of my mind to think positively, I'm going to get through this. No, I had my whole being, my whole essence behind me. So of course it was going to work. And I had no doubt at all that it wouldn't.
And in terms of the diagnosis then and what they told you to expect, what then happened? And what did you actually experience versus what they told you was going to happen?
Yeah, right. Well, after I had all those tests, then I ended up in front of the head of lymphoma, the head of the lymphoma team, a senior doctor, a junior doctor, and a Macmillan nurse, all sitting in front of me. So when you've got that many people, you know they're not going to say, "You've got a paper cut, just go home, you'll be all right." You know it's going to be something pretty serious. So I'm sitting there. They're then telling me all the symptoms and all the side effects and all the things that could go wrong. And as they're talking to me, it's like going in one ear and straight out the other. And I'm thinking, nope, nope, nope. It just wasn't an option. I just wasn't allowing it to go into my mind at all, what they were saying, because everything that they were saying was so negative. And then after they finished, they said, "Have you got anything to say?" And I said, "Yes. You've just told me what you think's going to happen. Now let me tell you what is going to happen." At which point they all go, "Huh?" But Sarah, at that point, it wasn't me. Something just came up, and of course it was just my life force, my energy, and it just came up, and I blurted out, "First of all, I am going to continue working every single day. Secondly, I am not going to tell anyone about my condition. Thirdly, I am going to treat this like an irritation and an inconvenience. And finally, I am not going to fit my life into my condition. My condition is going to have to fit into my life." And they said, "Okay." So they were a bit confused at that point, but that's what I was thinking and feeling, and that's what came out of me. So that's the power of actually understanding how to use more of your mind.
It's incredible. And then when you actually went into the treatments, what happened? So after you had spoken to them and you had told them, "Okay, right, this is what you think is going to happen. Here's what I'm going to tell you what's actually going to happen." What did happen after that, Angie?
Well, after that, I ended up having to have 8 bouts of chemo. And the first one was so strong that I had to be in hospital for 2 days whilst they drip fed it into me over a 48-hour period, which they do with everyone who's going through that particular treatment and that particular set of drugs, because they're so powerful. They have to monitor you 24 hours, for 48 hours. So every half an hour, I'm having my blood pressure done, my temperature taken, as these drugs are going into me. And the following day, the doctors are coming around and just doing their usual checks. And they look at my chart and they go, your blood pressure's actually gone down and your temperature has remained exactly the same. And they said, you're so relaxed and calm. And I said, well, why not? And they said, but most people that go through this sort of thing aren't like you. And I said, but this is just the way I am. So once again, it was just something else taking over it that just allowed me to sail through that first chemo. After that, all the others were 4-hour treatments. And once again, I sailed through all of those. I was absolutely fine. I didn't have any of their symptoms that they told me I would have. I actually got through it perfectly all right. My blood tests, whenever I had a blood test pre having the chemo, normally they expect your blood count to go down because of all the drugs in your body, whereas my blood count remained exactly the same. So the actual gauge they have, my blood count was exactly in the center of all of those gauges. So I had green lights everywhere, and they just said my blood count looks like somebody who isn't going through any type of treatment whatsoever. It was just spot on and perfect. And when I asked one of the doctors on a scale of 1 to 10 where I was, and I said on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being somebody who copes quite well with their treatment, and then 10 is somebody who really struggles with their symptoms and diagnosis, etc. The doctor said, Angie, you are off the scale. We've never met anybody like you before. And she says, I've personally treated thousands of cancer patients, and you are in a league of your own. And I put it all down to your mindset. And I remember you telling us that you were going to treat this like an irritation and an inconvenience. So she actually remembered exactly what I said. And she goes, it doesn't surprise me how you've managed to get through all of this completely pain-free. So, yeah, that was quite special when she told me that.
And in fact, I know we had been chatting about this earlier on. I think people would be really intrigued to hear this one. What happened? You mentioned there that it was pain-free, but what actually, tell them maybe about the conversation you had with the nurse at the time about the painkillers.
Yeah. Well, the painkillers, I should have been taking painkillers, except that I just thought, no, I don't need them. So why am I going to take them? But the nurse kept on insisting I do. And I was saying, well, look, is my blood pressure up? Is my temperature up? Do I look as if I'm in pain? And she finally had to agree with me that I was absolutely fine. There was nothing wrong with me. And she just stormed off. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Quite
and
funny.
as well as that, there's a funny story in all of this as well in relation to your hair, isn't that right? In relation to what you,
Yes.
something you thought about your hair that actually came about. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what happened was, Sarah, that a few months before I was diagnosed, I was thinking about changing my hairstyle. And at the time, I had really long braids, which I loved. But then I thought, actually, it's so easy with these braids. I just wash and go. There's no tonging or blow drying or straightening. It's just so low maintenance. I just thought, nah, I'll leave my braids as they are. So I'm, as I said, sitting in front of these 4 people, and they say, oh, yes, and of course, 2 weeks after you start your chemo, your hair will start to fall out. And rather than the note going through my mind, the first thing I thought was, great, now I can get my new hairstyle. And as soon as I said it, I thought, I've just given myself a program. So, and I thought, oh, well, I can live with it. I'm happy to change my hairstyle. So on day 11, I remember pulling my hair, nothing happened. Day 12, nothing happened. Day 13, nothing happened. Day 14, after I started my chemo, a huge lump of hair came out. Then I had to wear a wig. But I'd actually, because I knew that I'd given myself this program and that it was going to happen, I'd already changed my braids to a bob. I changed my hairstyle. So when I started wearing the wig, nobody noticed that it was any different. They just thought I'd changed my hairstyle, and they thought I'd done it weeks before. So no one noticed when I then started wearing a wig.
I know, I think that's incredible. I think we've chatted about that before, Angie, about how nobody had any idea at all what was going on, because you just sailed through everything, you were working, everything, you maintained, you know, an active lifestyle, everything. And it really comes down to, as you say, it comes down to the application of the Educo model in the area of health. And I know it's, you know, we get incredible, honestly, we get incredible feedback from people, and we get incredible testimonials, and we get incredible results when people apply the Educo model. And I do think that people will be really excited, particularly to hear your story. And given the fact as well, I think is incredible that you had experience of a health situation prior to attending the seminar and understanding the model. And then post the seminar and understanding how to apply the model, it was a completely different experience in terms of, I mean, it's incredible in terms of pain, in terms of recovery, in terms of your ability to apply your mind to it, in terms of the outcome, the results, everything that came from it. I think it's a game changer. And I know certainly when Tony did the operations all those years ago, and people were astounded by it. They were absolutely blown away by the fact that these people could undergo an operation without an anesthetic and not feel pain. And it's incredible to think. And at that time, actually, Tony was working directly with them, and he got these phenomenal results. It was a huge result at the time. And it's incredible to think that all these years later, that model and that education that you gained in the seminar allowed you to go out and actually take what you've been educated about and apply that to getting this incredible result. I think it's phenomenal.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's really exciting, and it's brilliant to have you on. It's brilliant to have you talking about it, and to see. And honestly, guys, Angie's going to be 60 next week. You look phenomenal. You really do. And I think that in itself is a testament to all that we're speaking about, you know, that life force, that health, everything within the body that makes such a difference. And I have no doubt that when people meet you, just as you met somebody, when people meet you, they get hit and struck by that presence. And so I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to share, Angie, before we wrap up and before we...
There is actually one more thing very quickly, and that was what happened 3 years ago. Because basically when they gave me the radiation back in the 70s, they now know they gave people way too much radiation. It was the wrong way to actually treat that particular type of cancer I had. And so what they discovered was women who had a lot of radiation back then were going on to develop breast cancer. And so 3 years ago, I ended up with breast cancer and had to have a mastectomy. However, when I woke up, I had tubes and drips everywhere. And one of the things I had was morphine, and I never needed to use it because after my operation, I was absolutely fine. I felt okay. I was in no pain whatsoever. So in fact, they just gave up on the morphine and just took it away and gave it to someone else. Because I sailed through it. I was back behind the wheel of a car within a week of having the operation. I did check with my insurance company to make sure it's all right, and they said it's absolutely fine, as long as I could do an emergency stop without harming myself or other people. So but it just goes to show it's worked time and time again. So it wasn't just something that was a flash in the pan. You know, I had another serious illness and completely sailed through that as well. So, and I put it all down to the Educo model and Dr. Tony Quinn. That's what made the difference. And I am eternally grateful for what he's done and what he continues to do, because it truly is mind-blowing and life-changing.
It is, and it's phenomenal.
Mm.
And it's brilliant to have you on tonight and hear you tell your story. And I know there'll be so many people who'd be so delighted to hear that and to see you shining so brightly there on screen and sharing that with everybody. So thank you so much for coming on, Angie, honestly. And as I say, I know that you have results in all areas of your life, but you're particularly passionate about health and about sharing that with people. And honestly, with everything that's going on in the world right now, we know how valuable our health is to us. So having that understanding and that education is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And medical disclaimer as well on all this, that you did go through all of the medical process, but what we're talking about is your ability to use your mind for the recovery, for the results and for the outcome, which was phenomenal. And I think a lot of the time people will talk about how, you know, it's one thing to undergo the actual procedure, it's the recovery time afterwards, it's all the stuff that happens, the pain, what your body goes through. And what you've shown tonight, or what we've seen described tonight, is the fact that you didn't need painkillers, that your recovery was supercharged, if you will, by what it is that you're able to do with the Educo model. So thank you so much for coming on tonight. Thank you for being with us. And it's brilliant to have you. It's brilliant for you to share your story. And I hope anyone out there who's listening and has been inspired by this evening will follow up and find out more, because honestly, the Educo model and the education that Dr. Tony Quinn is putting out there is phenomenal. It is truly out of this world. So thank you so much, Angie. Thank you for being with us. I will talk to you soon. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Bye.